Hi everybody, my name is Brady and I'm a 19th century American historian, and we are back with another React video, and today we're going to be doing more Oversimplified. Today we're going to be doing the Hitler episodes, at least the first one. We'll do the second one probably next week or something like that. So this should be fun. I did World War I a little while ago, and I asked you guys if I should do the Hitler stuff or the World War II stuff first. Most of you seem to agree. What are you doing? Most of you seem to agree that Hitler was the way to go. And this, ooh, pretty wings. You can't hate on that. That the Hitler one would be the best one to do first, probably because it'll cover stuff from his childhood and stuff, and that'll take place a little bit earlier than maybe a lot of the stuff that would end up getting covered in the World War II episode. I'm not sure. I assume that's the rationale there. So this should be fun. I don't know that much about 20th century history. I'm not very good with it. I've tried. I have definitely tried, but it's been a little while, and I'm going to assume that I know absolutely nothing. And whatever I know about Hitler, it's wrong. I'm just going to assume that going into it and see if I can learn a thing or two. And I'm very excited about this. Let's get it started.
Look at this baby. So gentle. So innocent. You'd think this child would grow up to become a good man. An honest man. Well, think again.
Oh.
Hitler was...
You didn't have to put a mustache on him for me to know that was Hitler. It's one of those... I know I clicked on a Hitler video and my expectations are a little bit spoiled here, but if you showed me that picture, I feel like I would know that's Hitler for some reason. There's something in his face that didn't change since he was a baby. It's hard to really put my finger on it, but it's there.
Was born Adolfus Hitler in 1889 in a small town in Austria-Hungary. His father, Alois Schicklgruber, was born out of wedlock, but eventually changed his name to that of his stepfather, becoming Alois Hitler. Alois was a mid-level Austrian customs officer, not really rolling in cash, but certainly rolling in women. He married a rich, older lady, but then immediately started having affairs, including one with a much younger house servant. A few years later, he left his sick wife to be with his mistress, but since the Catholic Church didn't allow divorce at the time, he couldn't marry her. So he waited for his old wife to die and had a child in the meantime. Then...
That's very... And I don't know too much about the customs at the time and how much influence the Catholic Church had, but this implies enough to make it so that he can't get a divorce. So that's rather interesting.
Then his wife died, so he married his mistress and had another child. But then his new wife got sick, so he employed his much younger cousin Clara to take care of her.
Oh,
then when his new wife
her.
died, he immediately got Clara, his cousin, pregnant, and then married her. In that order, you rock star. Clara and Alois had 3 children together, who all tragically died while in infancy. So when the 4th child, Adolf, came along, Clara spoiled him rotten.
Okay, there's something very interesting here, and I'd imagine... and I was thinking about a joke earlier, I can't even remember what it was. It was something to do with Freud having a field day with Adolf Hitler, and I guess there's something there. Okay, I think there's something really fun for people who are into the social sciences, into psychology and stuff, when it comes to the people who would become evil dictators, basically. There's usually a whole lot to break down. So seeing that he had a good relationship with his mother and likely not a great relationship with his father, I find that to be rather interesting, though I personally wouldn't know what to do with that information, not really having that great of a background in psychology, let alone in children.
Hitler's had 2 more kids, and the family moved around a few times, meaning Adolf had to attend 5 different elementary schools. Adolf's father was strict.
Can I just see that? Okay, I just wanted
to... moved around a few times, meaning Adolf had to attend 5 different elementary schools. Adolf's father was strict, quick to anger, and took most of it out on the eldest son, until he had enough and ran away at the age of 14, leaving 7-year-old Adolf to do most of the chores and get berated by his father.
That sort of a relationship seems to be kind of common in people who rule with an iron fist. A lot of them had that sort of, I guess, a dynamic in their households. And I don't know if it's really just something that's super ingrained from childhood, or if it's something that may have developed regardless, or maybe a broader cultural thing that could have done it. There's probably a number of factors, and you can't 100% tie it back to one thing. But when you see this sort of stuff and you see how these people turn out, I believe Stalin had a similar situation with his father, I think. I believe that was at least mentioned in some of OverSimplified's videos, and I think I read something about that some time ago. I'm not great with Russian history, even though I'm taking a class in Russian history myself. I'm trying to get better at it. I'm just not. But that does seem to be a common factor of, I guess, their parental figures ruling with an iron fist in the same way that they would as dictators.
The result was a difficult relationship with his dad while he was super attached to his mother, who worried over him and his health excessively. Hitler did well in school at first. His grades were good and his teachers praised him. He was popular with the other kids and enjoyed gathering them together to play war games. He also loved reading and particularly liked stories about cowboys and Indians. As he grew older, though, he started to get into trouble.
So that's he's got a little bit of exposure to a lot of the stuff that people around that time would be exposed to in the West. I don't know what it's like in most of Europe, but yeah, that's a huge factor over in the States. People are being brought up on all sorts of stories about and I can't really give like great examples because I don't really know what was popular specifically during this time period, but we'll think about like what is it, the Lone Ranger, the John Wayne stuff. We got all sorts of stuff like that where this is going to become very popular. I wouldn't imagine that inspiring Hitler, but maybe it did. I don't know.
Caught smoking once, organized a raid on a local orchard, tormented his pro-Austria religion teacher with symbolic gestures, displaying his allegiance to the idea of united Germanic people under a greater German state in defiance of Habsburg Austria. You know, the usual.
Oh, yeah?
All of this enraged Adolf's father, who punished him severely. The area of Austria-Hungary that Hitler lived in was once part of the German Confederation, and many of the people who lived there considered themselves to be German. Adolf tended to just go against whatever his father said, and since his father was an Austrian public official, Hitler got big into German nationalism.
That's always fun, and I don't want to use the word fun lightly, but that is always interesting when you have people within a country that consider themselves so separate from what it is now, and that happens all over. One of the most interesting examples that was given to me by one of my geography teachers was the Basque region in Spain, which I didn't know anything about prior to that conversation, but he talked about how he had an exchange student who comes over, and she was, I guess he referred to her as Spanish, and she kind of took offense to that. She's like, no, I'm not Spanish, I'm Basque. It was just a unique identity within the country of Spain, and maybe it's like a similar thing here. I don't want to compare Hitler to the Basque people. That's not what I'm trying to do. It's just a broad conversation about minority groups and identity in larger nations, I guess.
This enraged Adolf's father, who punished him severely.
Yeah.
Around this time, a family tragedy struck. His 6-year-old brother, whom he loved a lot, died of measles when Adolf was 10, and was buried in the cemetery just across from their home. Around this time, neighbors reported a change in the young boy. Strange behaviors such as talking to trees and staying up late staring at the stars from the cemetery walls. He lost interest in religion, and his school grades started to decline, which enraged his father, who punished him severely.
Some people get a little uncomfortable with history when it humanizes people that we're not supposed to like, I guess. That's a huge issue that a lot of people have trouble coming to terms with when they look at history. I'll have moments when I'm reading about Andrew Jackson, and you see like little endearing moments with him, like playing with kids and stuff, and like the kids riding him around like a horse, and he's playing, and he seems like a really cool grandpa or something like that. And then you know all the terrible things he did, and it's like, oh no, don't give me reasons to like you. But it's also like, people are humans, people are complex, people will sometimes get to terrible places because of bad things happening to them, and that doesn't make it right, but that is something that we have to reconcile when we are dealing with these figures. It just, whatever direction you go with it or not, you don't have to sympathize with them, but it's good to at least try to understand them on a deeper level than just saying that they're just evil because they're evil because they're evil, even though Hitler, pretty darn evil.
It also didn't help that he had just entered high school, and the cool city boys treated him like a rural peasant. He had to repeat a grade and had little interest in most school subjects, instead spending his time reading and drawing, which he was quite good at.
The repeat a grade thing, this is why I don't want to think that I understand anything, because I will hear things about Hitler. It's like, it seems like people are just picking on Hitler from the dead. I've heard the thing about him having to repeat a grade, and that was something where I guess whoever was telling me that was just trying to say, yeah, Hitler was an idiot. No, he was going through a lot. That doesn't necessarily make him an idiot. I mean, he might be an idiot. I don't know, but I guess context matters or whatever, because like, you can have otherwise smart people do poorly in school. It's one of those things.
One day his father said, "Son, someday you'll be a big balls public official like me." And Adolf replied, "No, father, I'm going to become an artist and soar high above the clouds with the eagles." This enraged his father, but by this time he was an old-ass man, so he just sort of let it go, and then died of a lung hemorrhage. Hitler just about passed his final semester, and celebrated in the typical way, by getting blackout drunk and wiping his ass with the certificate. However, he didn't take the overall final school exam, instead just dropping out. The now 16-year-old boy was unemployed, without much purpose in life, and for the next 3 years, he stayed that way. He spent most of his time at the opera with his only friend, August Kubizek. Kubizek later wrote his memories of the young Hitler, and said he was passionately interested in many things, felt he was in many ways better than others his age, was quick to anger just like his father, and an incredible speaker once he was ranting. When he was 18, he said a very sad goodbye to his mother and went to Vienna to take the entrance exam for art school. He failed. Soon after,
Oh man, the art school thing, and every history person has heard a joke about, if only Hitler got into art school, like history would have been so much different. But yeah, like, if only Hitler had gotten into art school. Sometimes it's just the littlest differences that can change. Like, I've heard somebody make a joke like, if you could. If you had a time machine, would you go back and kill Hitler? And the person basically said, no, I would help him study for his art exam. It's not really a good joke, but it's a fun idea.
He had to return home. His mother was sick, and her health was rapidly deteriorating. Hitler stayed by her side, and when she eventually died, the family doctor said he had never seen someone so overwhelmed with grief as Hitler was. Then Hitler returned to Vienna, still hoping to find a career in the arts, but he never did. Instead, without parental support, Hitler ended up on the streets. Now in his early 20s, he spent a few rough years living in and out of homeless shelters, making what little he could from selling postcards he painted. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when and how Hitler's extreme ideological beliefs formed, but his time in Vienna would have certainly played a role. Anti-Semitism was widespread in the city. The mayor, whom Hitler supported, was an outspoken anti-Semite. There were many right-wing anti-Semitic newsletters, which Hitler took a keen interest in. He bought into the conspiracy theories and became a firm believer in the idea that there are many races in constant struggle with one another, the purest of which were the German Aryan people.
This is very interesting here, and I remember reading something about like, philosophies around humans' relationship with race, and there were like a few different rationalizations of like racism, and like, why do people feel this way? Why is this such a consistent thing in human history? One thing that people don't want to address, one of the little theories, was that humans just are inherently racist, and that it's a behavior that has to be kind of unlearned, and whether it can be fully unlearned, I don't know. I don't know if I fully buy into that or not, but it's an interesting thought. There's another one that it just comes from the place you come up in. And if he is surrounded by anti-Semitism, then he's naturally going to be more likely to accept that. It doesn't, you don't have to be cool with that, but it helps us understand why he was that way.
And the worst of which, he believed, were Jews.
Oof.
Since Austria-Hungary was a multi-ethnic empire full of lesser races, Hitler wasn't a fan. So when he was 24, he moved to Munich in Germany to avoid doing military service. And for one more year, he was a drifter on the streets, until something huge happened. In 1914, long-standing tensions in Europe erupted into the First World War. Crowds across Europe celebrated the news. Within days, Hitler volunteered for the German army. The war gave him a purpose in life. His fellow soldiers gave him friendship and brotherhood.
He had the like a real handlebar mustache at first, and that's something that I have learned about a little bit. I guess the handlebar mustache, like, it was huge during the time, but like the I guess the gas masks that they would wear, it was not good to have like the hair sticking out. So the toothbrush was a much better mustache to have during that time, which I found very interesting. When the pandemic first broke out, I started seeing things that, hey, you should probably like shave your facial hair, and here's a list of all the best facial hair to have that won't conflict with wearing a mask. And I thought that was very interesting. Clearly, I didn't listen very well, but the toothbrush was on there. I don't think anybody took the advice on that one. But yeah, it was kind of a similar thing. Like, the gas mask, you just didn't want your hair to go over the edges because it wouldn't be nearly as effective. And I guess the masks we wear now, it's a very similar thing. Though it's not nearly as fatal, I suppose, for most people. If you happen to have a little bit of hair sticking out of your mask, it's a completely different situation. But I thought that kind of related.
Despite the horrors of war, Hitler considered it to be the best time of his life. He was reportedly
What a
a brave
madman.
soldier and was awarded the Iron Cross, first class. He was also very lucky and had many close encounters with death. His luck ran out in 1916, however, when an artillery shell injured his leg. He went back to Germany to recover and was outraged to find a general apathetic anti-war attitude among the exhausted and hungry German populace. With the war turning against Germany, he returned to the front lines, but was temporarily blinded by a British gas attack in 1918. A month later, still recovering in hospital, Hitler learned of Germany's defeat and surrender. The terms of the peace treaty...
And that's gonna piss him off a little bit, I'm sure. The Treaty of Versailles thing. I remember recently I asked a question like, wait, what Treaty of Versailles are we talking about? Aren't there a bunch of treaties of Versailles? And some of you thought I was talking about like the Treaty of Paris, because there were a lot of treaties of Paris as well. But there's also a lot of treaties of Versailles, apparently. And I was right about that. But yeah, there's a lot of treaties of Versailles. But this is the one they are usually talking about. Let me go back 10
Hitler
seconds.
learned of Germany's defeat and surrender. The terms of the peace treaty were tough on Germany. It had to pay a lot of money and lose a lot of soldiers. These conditions weakened Germany and humiliated the German people. Europe's borders changed after the war too. New countries were formed out of Russia's lost territory. Austria-Hungary was dissolved, and there was one big new country splitting Germany into two. Hitler, seeing the country he loved humiliated like this, said that hatred grew in him for those responsible, by which he meant communists and Jews, who he believed had stabbed Germany in the back by spreading dissent and anti-war propaganda back home.
So I guess we're going to do part 2 in the near future, probably next week. I find this to be a whole lot of fun to learn about. I never cared about military history. Once we actually get into the war, it's not nearly as exciting for me. I like this stuff where you get the build-up to conflicts like this. And you learn about the societal factors that go into creating people like Hitler. How he is, in a lot of ways, a product of his environment. And I think that's so much more interesting than the big battle of good versus evil. I think I might have, like in another life, gone for sociology. Because I think that's a really interesting subject, and it's so hand in hand with history in a lot of ways. If you are a historian, you're probably going to dabble a lot in what sociologists dabble in, and sociologists in a lot of ways will mess around in history as well. It's the borders between the social sciences, the social studies, and all that stuff, they're all very thin. You're almost certainly going to be encountering one or more other things in like a nearby field. And that's kind of why I like the social studies. You get to dabble in so many different things, and you get so much freedom, I guess, to pick how you approach things, which I think this video really demonstrated the way I like to approach history. I'm sure the next one we're probably going to get more into the war. That might not be as much my thing, but I'm going to check it out anyway. Or maybe we'll do like, it'll be like the lead up to the war. Maybe it'll cut off and it'll be like, okay, now you have to watch my World War II video. I don't know for sure. I don't know if these are made as like as a series. World War I, Hitler, World War II. I mean, this one had stuff before World War I as well, so maybe it's not like perfect. Whatever. I'm not going to overthink it. That was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If there are any other videos you want me to check out in the near future, leave them in the comment section below. I'm not huge into the 20th century, but I am open to learning new, interesting things. I love exploring the human element of things. So if that helps you come up with things to suggest for me, we got that. Thank you, and I will see you guys next time.